think we. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Parent Circle. I'm Karen Putz, and with me today we have Lee and Bob Woodruff. And I'm really honored to have them here with us. First of all, because we're brand new. So thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate it. And Mike Morris is joining us today from the Parent Circle as well. So three of us are just going to have a conversation. Those of you who are watching can jump in anytime. You can add your questions in the chat room, or raise your hand, and we'll include you. Jump on. Unfortunately, our interpreters have not shown up. I don't know if there's a time that's up. We're gonna roll with captions today. So welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm excited to have my husband with me. So we usually do these things separately. Kind of fun to do them together. I have to ask you one thing though. Will you do Lee and Bob Woodruff again in sign? I don't think I've ever seen our names. It was such a beautiful. Will you sign our names again so I can see that?
Lee and Bob Woodruff.
You ready? Let's practice.
I'm gonna need a lesson. I'm gonna need a lesson.
Lee and Bob.
I like the Bob.
Thank you guys for coming. So some people who are really new to the journey have brand new babies, so they may not even know your story. So even though you may have told your story several times throughout the years, think of the parent with this brand new baby in their hand. And I'm hoping that with your wisdom of being what we quote, like at the other end of the journey, we can give that wisdom to a parent that's new to the journey. There's something to be said for shortening that learning curve, with the wisdom. I've already been there, done that. So let's have the two of you start your story at the beginning with Nora.
Nora. Well, first of all, I think that whoever gives birth to the baby gets to speak first. So take over.
Okay, I'll take that. Yeah, I will take that because I think a big part of the story for us also is that Nora was diagnosed at a time when Bob was really gone and on the road a lot as a reporter. We were living internationally in London, and so all of his stories were outside of London. So I was never alone on this journey, but there were moments I felt lonely, and not because he's not a fantastic partner, but just he literally wasn't there.
But if I can say, just it's not to defend myself, but to say it's always a complicated thing that, yes, I was on the road a lot because I largely covered wars overseas. But on the other hand, I had this great ability when I come back to spend nothing but time with my kids. So I think sometimes the studies show that it's not the amount of time you spend with your kids, but more about the quality that you spend with the kids. Have them. We have I have great stories to tell my kids, and I don't know, maybe there's even the ability to love so deeply because you're not tired of them. So you spend a lot of time away. I think sometimes the quality of the time with them is even better. So I just wanted to defend myself.
Well,
been gone a lot.
I should have said at the top, Bob is the most fabulous dad, and in many ways was way more equipped in the baby stage to deal with everything that happened. But somebody had to put bread on the table, so somebody had to be the person going out in the world with the job. So anyway, Nora's a twin. Nora and Claire were born in 2000.
Fraternal. Yeah.
Fraternal twins, that's right. So they were Y2K babies. And I want to just preface everything that we're going to say today by saying our journey was 24 years ago. So advice that we have for the current parent is going to be way out of date in terms of, anything to do with technology or any of those advancements. So we're just going to speak from the heart as parents. But we have two older children. So I think we were quicker to understand what this baby thing was all about. And then with a twin, you get to watch both girls together. So I remember we just sort of had some questions. I remember saying to Bob, are we worried about Nora at all? She just seems a little slower. And between the two personalities, Nora is the Buddha baby. Like she was gifted with that personality of just being way more calm, where the other one, Claire, is just was crying all the time, was the agitated one. So that also, I think, made us slower to move. I also want to say one of the amazing things was that I'm going to get this wrong, and you're all going to know this, but there was in 2000 and maybe the year before, there was a federal rule finally that there would be newborn screening for hearing. Um, and so that we lived in Maryland, and that law went into effect in May. Our babies were born in April. So had they been born 1 year later, we might have at birth had the sensory neural, and that's okay. So at 9 months, I remember one time we were in London and somebody dropped a whole pile of pots and pans on the floor, and Nora didn't move. And I remember calling him that night, wherever he was, and I said, you know what? I think something's up here. And on their 9 month checkup, she failed the little silver rattle test behind the head. I don't know if they still do that one. I probably sound like a dinosaur. Okay.
Still in some
They
cases.
still do that. Okay. And we went through a series, it's escalated to, I think she finally she had to go through an MRI, which was just horrific with a 9-month-old. I just remember they just kept dosing her with things to make her sleepy. And I just kept thinking to myself, I wish she could talk, because then she could tell us what she heard. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to have to wait years? Are we going to have to wait years until she can say, yes, I heard that, or no, I didn't hear that? I remember sort of feeling a sense of despair. She is moderate to severely deaf. She did not meet the threshold for a cochlear implant. And, I didn't know enough to know whether that was good or bad. It was what it was. I knew that it was great not to have another surgery for this little girl. But beyond that, we didn't really know what we didn't know. And I'll stop there before I get it to the next level, because how are you feeling when you were learning?
I think it's true that I was not there when the test was, when she first got her appointment, just to be checked. And there's Claire sitting next to Nora. Well, Claire goes first, and they put the little bunny in front of her face, and she looks at the bunny. Then they do a ring over here, and she turns like this, and then she does this side behind. She turns like, Nora doesn't turn at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's in the beginning, it's really hard to figure it out, to really put up with it, deal with it, because you don't really know, as Lee said, how bad it is or how good it is. And because she's so young, we didn't really know exactly what she's hearing. Did she understand it? Because she was just born more mellow than Claire was. So if she's not reacting, we thought, well, maybe part of it is that she's not really doesn't really want to react, or she doesn't feel like doing it. It was hard to tell what it was and how much hearing, but we could tell by the snapping. And I think we heard she had very difficulty to hear the difference between like a D and a T, or an S and a Z. She couldn't really feel the distinction between them. We were certainly getting that seemed to be the case, but it was really hard for us to tell. So we then least really started to take her to some of the other parents to get together and meet with other parents that also had kids that were deaf, some of them extremely deaf, and the other ones that are a little bit more moderate, like Nora. So we're just trying to see what the reaction from the other kids are when they hear their parents. And then you have a better idea how bad it is.
Early days, I think you really hit on it, that uncertainty, not knowing, is this related to what she can hear? Is this related to her personality? That's a really tough thing for us as parents to figure out in the beginning. How much of it is related to not being able to hear, and how much of it is just they would have been that way anyway had they had hearing in the normal range.
Right.
So those early days. So what is Nora like today? Tell us about Nora.
Well, Nora said you've been in touch with her. She said, Mom, this woman's contacting me and I don't know who she is. And I said, honey, that's my friend and you need to talk to her. So she's like, oh, okay.
I'm going to interview her next.
You're going to interview her next. What is, yeah, you tell,
Oh,
what is
yes.
Nora like now? You talk.
I guess Nora, even though we know she hears us, she still ignores us sometimes. So that's part of the personality thing with her. But she also, the great thing, she has these great advantages over her sister, because if we are far away or anybody's far away, she can, read their lips. So she has the ability through years of practice that she can see what you're saying about her from far away, or
Yeah.
if you're speaking dirty, she'll know. The other kids do not. So I think she's be able to use that in her advance, in her benefit to her.
I want to think about the parents out there right here and just talk to them, because before I go back to where Nora is now, I have a very distinct memory, and Bob and I were just talking about this yesterday. My very first thought when I got Nora's diagnosis, I had two thoughts, and I wonder if these are still the thoughts of parents. The first one was, how is she going to hear her baby cry? And the second one is, who is going to ask her to go to the prom? Aren't those kind of ridiculously wild thoughts? Although as I've encountered other parents of hearing impaired children over time, I realize those aren't really such crazy thoughts. And the other thing I want to say to parents out there is, I don't feel like the medical community is set up to offer you hope. So the things I most remember, and we also had an audiologist in London who, let's just say, he could have used a little more better delivery by the bedside. But I remember him saying, you need to brace yourself that your daughter will not go to mainstream school. She probably won't be able to talk on the phone. She, won't catch the words to songs. She won't. And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm still processing this information, because of course, as parents, we would have, removed our own hearing to give it to her, so you're still figuring the whole thing out and coming to grips with, how am I going to give this child every resource in the world for her to succeed? And someone's telling you what they're not going to be able to do. So I want to say to those parents right now, don't let anybody minimize the limits out there for this little baby that you're holding now, because at the end of the day, boy, you want Nora on your side. She is the most incredible friend. She excelled at school. I'm going to guess that for most of you parents, you also had the same experience we did, that somewhere in middle school, she pulled their hearing aids out because she didn't want to be different. She certainly stopped wearing the tie-dye molds because that wasn't cool. So somewhere around 11th grade, I could see this little girl. Yeah, I know. Everyone told me, watch out for middle school. It's going to be over. So she went through school as an exceptional student. She inherited her father's brain, super at math, all without aids until about 11th grade. And she was coming home, and I could just see how tired she was, because all of you know how much it takes in school to be listening, watching the teacher's face. I don't know that she wore the boots and the mic in high school. She said she did, but at that point I had no control. So it was taking everything she had to focus. And I said to her, you're really I can see how tired you are. Do you want to try the aids again? Because your ears have stopped growing. You could wear the inside the ear aids, and you should just try it. And so she said, okay, let's go back. We'll go to the audiologist. And I will never forget this. It'll still make me cry. She put the hearing aids in, and I said something, and she went like this. And she said, Mom, I can hear you without looking at you. And I thought, oh my God, this little girl has been going through AP classes and all this stuff. And I at least thought she, as Bob was saying, had just high frequency loss, even though she was moderate to severe and it would come in that way. I realized how little she had been hearing. And of course, there's guilt. So parents, remove that guilt, because you're going to do the best you can do. That's all we got as parents. But I just remember feeling fundamentally, oh my God, you're a little superstar. And oh my God, Lee, you could have been on this a little bit more, which is not going to get you anywhere at the end of the day.
Because I would say to parents a couple of things too. One is, I think when this first happens and you learn that your little baby can't hear as well as they could, I think it gets better to deal with without question quickly. It kind of accelerates in the beginning. You get used to it. It's more comfortable. You're not as much in pain being a parent of somebody with I don't call it a disability. I call it a different ability,
Mhm.
you know, and sometimes they do get some advantages to have it too. The second thing is the other that Lee just mentioned, we really have learned in our life in the last 24 years is incredible improvement in technology
Mhm.
to deal with this. You know, everything. Listen, AI is going to come up with all sorts of other solutions to it. So, yes, I mean, if you took, you know, deafness or, bad hearing 20 years ago is completely different than having challenges with your hearing today. And then 20 years from now, I don't know, 5 years from now, I think there's going to be other improvements. I think a lot of things will be improved. You know, I'm not sure the word cured or fixed, but I will say improved. So I think that should make parents a little bit more, you know, comfortable, given that it will get better. Um, and you will have ways as a parent, the techniques and the abilities to how to deal with it. And then, of course, you know, technology and medicine. I think it's going to be pretty miraculous, in my thought.
I also want to acknowledge deaf culture here and understand that, that is a way of life as well. And this isn't to negate deafness in any way. It's in a family where everyone was able to hear and Nora wasn't, our first go-to was how can we, get her more hearing. So I want to respect deaf culture as well and
Yeah,
those
yeah.
families who
And
are.
the stigma, I think the stigma is certainly going away. You know, I think there probably were days where you just, you know, want to hide in your room and don't ever show that you have a, you know, I'm talking probably like 100 years ago or something. You didn't want to reveal this, but now I think it gives the families a real moment of pride, you
Mhm.
know, that you have uh, a special, amazing child, you know, who can overcome things the other kids cannot. I think it gives you kind of a sense of pride.
Superpowers.
Superpowers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen, you had something to ask us. We just keep talking here. We're like two faucets.
Well, for me, I just want to jump in and say that, no, it's interesting. Our whole family is deaf, so this whole progress that we're making in technology and AI and stem cells and things like that, on one hand, a great thing, and on the other hand, a little bit of sadness happens because we have this beautiful diversity in our world with our children who are deaf, hard of hearing, deaf blind, deaf disabled, deaf plus. And to think that that might be disappearing is a little bit of a sadness there.
Yeah.
Mike, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was curious how your other children uh, relate and how that's gone through the years as she's evolved through her progress and how they work together.
I think it's kind of like, what was it, Martha's Vineyard or something, a place where I don't think they even recognize that Nora's different than them. You know, I think they do the same thing. They hit her and beat her up, and they yell at her and criticize her just like they would to each other equally. So I don't think they give her with any pity or anything like that. They treated her just the way they are.
Yeah.
But they love her, you know. I think they do have love.
It's just like any other family. No one looks at Nora that way or thinks of her that way. And, if Nora decides that she doesn't want to take the garbage out and she welches out of that, someone will say, "Nice try, Nora. We know you heard it."
Yeah, we know you heard us.
Yeah.
I love that, Bob, when you said she pretends she can't hear you. I think that's
Totally.
that's a
He does
that's
that too, though. So I don't know what that.
Hey, my wife I had a hearing test at a certain point too, so I can relate to him in a lot of ways. How have the two of you, as a husband and wife, how have you emotionally gone through the process? Similarly, differently, or is it been the same, different? Can you comment on that?
I've always felt so supported by Bob. He, we've always been on the same page with that. And there's no different treatment for anyone in the family. I'd like to think we parented everybody the same. I bathed Nora in speech and language classes early on. And one of the fascinating things to me was having twins. I didn't have a choice. I had to take Claire, the hearing twin, along to every therapy. And she also was like, wait, Nora's getting something and I'm not. So I had to take some of Nora's old hearing aids and molds and give her some too, because she wanted, even though they didn't work, she needed to have those in her ears at one point in time, which was pretty cute. But I'll never forget going to a play date with them. And at this point, let's say Claire had been dragged around to like a year's worth of speech therapy. And there was, I would go into the city 2 days a week, and I would go up in Westchester to the School for the Deaf. And then Nora would get services in school too. So I was trying to ensure that she could have as much language in those early years. And by the way, parents listening of babies, those, as I'm sure, you know, Karen and Mike, you tell everyone, those first 3 years for language, whether, you know, you've got a hearing impaired child or not, doesn't matter. Those first 3 years for laying down neural tracks are so important. So we have a nephew with cerebral palsy who I think in the first 3 years that was missed. And I think so he could be walking and probably cognitively functioning so much better if that had been caught. So this don't squander the time. But so we would go to a play date, and a mother would, I'd pick the girls up, let's say they were 3. And I remember one mother saying, my God, your daughter, Claire, her language is so good. And Claire would be at somebody's house saying, may I please have an orange from all and the mother would be, wow, like, and I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it, you know. She doesn't talk like that now. They all mumble in their 20s, right? So anyway, that was, you got to find the humor in all of this stuff, because your child will be fine. As Bob just said, everybody, we're so resilient. We're all resilient. Parents are resilient. We just have to process stuff at first, because it wasn't, you've all probably read the beautiful story, Welcome to Holland. Is everybody familiar with that?
Yep, very
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah. So I've sent that to parents who are just learning their child is gay. I mean, that's not, these are just, it's a different expectation than you had. And so for Bob and I, we didn't even think about, no one in our family, we have connects in 26. So we didn't know that. I carry a recessive gene, so does Bob. So this wasn't even on our dance card for issues. There are other things in our family that we would have been expecting. So we just had to get our hands around that. And then you make it works for everybody. Nora wouldn't change a thing about her life.
I'm really curious though, when Nora was growing up, or even now, does she have like that hard of hearing role model to look up to or to connect with?
No. And I love that question, because one of the first things I did, and Karen, I may have told you this when we first met, I got everything I could get my hands on to read. And gosh, I'm blanking now because I'm starting to get old and losing my memory. But what was the correspondence course that's out in California, named after
Wealthy woman.
John Tracy Clinic?
John Tracy Clinic? Yes, thank you, ladies. So I was in London, and I found an amazing place called Christopher Place with this incredible therapist who helped Nora. But John Tracy Clinic gave me a lifeline, because they would keep sending, you know, these various sort of coursework and chapters, and I would read it all and just feel like I'm not alone. But I was sort of alone searching for role models. And I remember ordering every book I can. I wanted to jump ahead and see people in society who had achieved incredible things, and who were hearing impaired. And I still have all those books. And I just want to Bob referenced something, and I'm sure it's a story you all know, but it was one that we remember vividly. The community on Martha's Vineyard. Was it Chilmark? Do you all know this story? There was a community of from the 1600s.
Martha's Vineyard,
Yes.
that community there.
Deaf community there. Yes.
Yes.
So before the highway system flourished and people moved everywhere in all our communities in our country, and people stayed in the same community, the part I think that Bob and I remember most about that is whatever sociologist was able to get there before, you know, the modern world intruded too much. The person was going around town saying, you know, is Karen deaf? Is Mike deaf? And people would be like, geez, I don't know. I'd have to think about that, because language was, there was a sign, they had created their own. I thought it was such a beautiful story. It's like, we're not going to look at people whether they're deaf or not. We all have a language, we all talk. And that story I remember gave Bob and I
Yeah,
some
it's like the
hope.
stigma thing, like I said before.
Yeah.
You know, I think it just, you know, it's not like there's no differences between your child who's got deafness and the other one doesn't. I'm sorry, go ahead. I just think that, you know, we had to push for certain things for your kids to protect them. I think Lee fought the school, the elementary school, to make them to put speakers in the room so that people sitting in the back, which Nora often did, that they heard the same as those in the front row. So they wear the thing on their chest. So fight for that. We also had, you know, to protect their social lives too. You know, there's just a couple of people that invited Claire to go out to their house to play. We just demanded, they're twins. You want one over? You got them both. You know, so that, and they have the same exact friends for their entire high school career to this day. You know, they've got friends that are shared. So I think once you show that there's nothing, it's not two different worlds they live in, and you got them all. And no, it's not like people didn't want, there's a couple of people just happened to have met Claire first. They invited her over. It's not because they didn't like Nora, but we just wanted to push to make sure they both grew up the same place, the same way, the same benefits of life.
So Sally Hugh had the question. I'm gonna pull her up.
Yeah.
And hold 1 second. Let me see if I can add you. Okay. Do you want a voice? Or do you want me to voice for you?
Yeah.
Hold 1 second. I'm gonna...
Right. Oh, God.
It's nice to meet you both. I am curious, what's Nora doing today? Where is she now?
Nora, I mean, she did so well in school. She went off to Brown University, and now she's working in the finance world. And she's a real math girl. So now she's, you know, now she's doing that. So the twins are 24 years old. Both of them have boyfriends and living in Manhattan. So I think their lives, she just, you know, got on her feet, and I think you know, it's miraculous. I think we pushed what we could, and she has naturally what she has, and she's been able to have confidence about what she can do.
That was something too. I'm glad you asked that question, because I remember so much of the early therapy, another reason to get a child in early, was to empower Nora to be able to say, I didn't hear you. Or, you know, I hear differently. So could you slow down? Because I think that's a huge, as a kid, you know, you don't want to, nobody wants to be different. Nobody wants to ask for any of that stuff. And that was such a part of the therapy, to empower her to just say if she needed someone to say it again. And I would see her doing that as she grew up and think, good for you. You know, that was a really key part of everything, was to not to shrink away and to not feel any sense of, you know, being less than in any way, which is tough in adolescence.
Anyone? Okay. I'm very proud of the two of you with your efforts to raise a child to the best of your ability and to encourage reading and speaking and communicating. You did a great job. That was awesome. Has she been able to meet other deaf people? Does she know sign language? I'm just curious.
She went to that one meeting.
She did a program in Washington. It was not through Gallaudet. I'm trying to remember how someone found her, and she went to a camp. And she had a really fabulous time, and she met a whole range of kids in different ages. And Nora will be able to tell you, Karen, what it was. I'm forgetting it, but it was a really wonderful experience for her. There's only one other child in our school district who was deaf, and wore hearing aids, and her mom and I were very much on the same page. But Nora did not have peers. I think she didn't meet a lot of kids as she was growing up. So that the camp was really important. I often, and I really regret sign language that we didn't. There was so much going on, and that's not a good excuse for me. We started baby sign with both of the twins, which is not ASL, I recognize. And yeah, I mean, I was largely a single parent at home with 4 children. And adding sign language is something I regret that we didn't do. Just watching you all talk to one another, I turned to Bob, I said, don't you wish we could do that?
Mhm.
It's just so beautiful and so universal. So that is a regret. But Nora, that's something that Nora can go back and add to her life should she choose to. What a wonderful and universal thing to be able to speak to people with your hands.
Wonderful. I didn't learn sign until I was 25.
See? She's only 24, so this is good.
Grew up with spoken language or completely deaf. I have a deaf brother, but I grew up speaking, reading. And then
Wow.
I went to public school, here in college, and then I went into Gallaudet. That is where I started learning sign. And wow, I didn't realize how much I was missing from not knowing sign language. It really makes a difference. So now that I'm older, I graduated from college and I worked as an academic advisor, a social professor at RIT in Rochester Institute of Technology. I'm retired now. I've raised 2 hearing children who became deaf. The whole family signs. Beautiful language. That's a second language.
Yeah.
Were both of you?
I really appreciate both of you, your commitment and your enthusiasm with your children. Very proud of you.
Yeah.
Mm. Were both of you born deaf or later on in life?
Are both of us born deaf or?
Yeah.
I was born deaf, that's sad. I have deaf relatives. I have a deaf cousin, second cousin, third cousins who are deaf. I can speak pretty well, very well.
Was one of those concerns.
Everyone
I think okay. I think we had that concern that Nora had the kind of deafness that would get worse.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can speak well. I had a lot of speech practice, but I had no language until I was 5. So it took a lot of years to catch up. I'm from a bilingual home. My parents spoke French, so they had to learn English because of my brother and me. Yeah.
Your parents spoke Dutch, and so you had to do English,
No,
Dutch.
French.
But
Parlez-vous
still,
français? Oui.
still another language. Wow.
Fermez la bouche. Fermez la bouche.
I like that. I like that. Fermez la bouche. Shut that mouth, right? That's great.
me, I was
Wow.
born
Thank you
here,
for that.
grew up hard of hearing, and I became deaf water skiing. I was barefooting at high speed and just fell at 19. Got into the boat, I was deaf at that point. And then
Barefoot water ski. That's
happened,
her.
transferred to NIU, and I started learning sign then.
So I tore my hamstring on my left leg, ripping the entire muscle off of my hip bone by water skiing 8-9 months ago. So neither one of us should do that sport
Yeah.
anymore.
No, she does though. Karen still does.
You still do?
She
Yeah.
barefoot water skis.
Oh my God. So please,
Barefoot with a whole group of older people. So one
I've
of
seen
them
her
was the
pictures.
first national barefoot champion, and he's in Buffalo. So we barefoot together.
Your husband. Yeah.
all right, here's my absolute order. Stretch your muscle, stretch your hamstring before you do it as much as you can.
Well, the last barefooting, we had to take the guy to the hospital. He pulled out his shoulder.
Okay. Guys, listen, this is a dangerous sport. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Mike, you have anything more you want? Any more questions?
No, I also want to commend both of you for all your enthusiasm. I mean, it's raising children is hard. Listening to the story of Nora and the whole family is wonderful. It's a tribute to both of you. I also raised a deaf son. I do not speak sign language either, but my wife is fluent
Mm.
with my sons. So don't feel too guilty, you can continue, you can begin at any point. And
Do you think that your wife and son talk a lot about you behind your back? Because that's what I would. if I was-
they would
I
if they
can't
could.
that. His wife is right, his wife is right here. Yes,
Do you, honey?
Tell us how much you have secret conversations with you.
Well, it's interesting, because Malik has cognitive delays, he has charge syndrome, he's not a huge signer. And
Okay.
so being in the, I worked in the deaf world before I had Malik, and then being Malik. And so I was like, oh, great. So I had the ability to communicate with him. But Malik is not a big conversationalist or a big signer. And I think if he were hearing, he really wouldn't have a lot to say either. And so that was hard, because I would go to these conferences. Karen and I signed together. She puts up my bag signing, and I come back signing, and he's like, yeah, okay, what? So so for us, some parents, it just doesn't take in that way. But he could say, Mom, I love you, and that's all I need. Now
All
the
you need.
girls who talk a lot, we talk about that all the time. You love it, but we talk about them all the time.
Of course, Mike, you know what? You're out, buddy. They're talking.
Malik is on team dad.
As a husband, we understand that. That's how we get HHH, husband hard of hearing. We have our own way.
You have that. Totally has that, Mike.
That, I didn't know there's a word for it.
Yeah.
Thank God. I thought it was
Triple
just
H.
me.
Thank you for identifying what that is. Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Don't give him a hearing test.
Yeah, exactly.
No, thank you both for
Janae, do you
Well-
have any questions?
Well,
Do you have any questions you want to add? Any areas that
yes. What are you both doing now within the field of disability, hard of hearing, now that Nora's grown up?
I'm going to be honest, we're not as involved at all as we were when we were young.
Mhm.
We would go when people would ask us to come talk at their nonprofits or their benefits, whether it was John Tracy or I remember, I think, we have another whole story with what our family went through. And so we do a lot of speaking and a lot of advocating for the veteran injured vets and their families, which is where we put most of our time. But in the earlier days when Nora was young and Karen, when I was probably writing more about it as a parent, she's now an adult, obviously, Bob and I would get asked to come speak at different organizations. And, you know how this thing works. You get an award, which means, will you come and speak for free and raise money for our organization? We would always say yes when we could. And so we have a lot of wonderful pieces of glass with inscriptions on them, which I wish people would have just put the money and taken it toward whatever the purpose was. But the only one that I display is the Annie Glenn Award. So I don't know if you know the story of the Glens had as in the astronauts, had a deaf child. Or no, I'm sorry, Annie was deaf. John Glenn's wife, whatever that was, was that Apollo 13? Or was that the one that blew up? Anyway, the one that landed on Annie Glenn was hard of hearing. And if you watch that movie that Tom Hanks did or Spielberg about who's the one we all think of? Neil Armstrong, Glenn. There was a big movie years ago about that. And Annie was afraid to mix with the other wives because she was very hard of hearing. And so the National, and I'm going to get it wrong, the National Association of Deaf. Yeah, Mike's got it. Mike's already got it on the link.
See how old we are? We forget the names
Yeah.
of everything now. So
Oh yeah.
We're moving steadily through our 60s, so we now have other issues. But we went to a national organization around deafness, and they presented Bob and I with an award, and that is the only award that I display, because to me that says, like, you did your best as a mom, and that is more important than any other silly little thing you could hang around my neck.
That's
And
wonderful.
Dad, I'm sorry, I don't mean to leave him out of it. We both received this award, and it was for being willing to talk about, we didn't do anything special or anything other than you all have done. You all put your heart and souls into raising your children and advocating, but it was the most meaningful thing to me. We accepted it on behalf of every parent.
That's wonderful. Well, we have plenty of work for you all to do. Once Karen and Mike and I get our hooks into you, that's it.
60th year retirement. I see them having all kinds of time on their hands. They said they don't have a dog. I heard
Wait,
that.
but we're still working full time. We still earn that. We still have that badge going on. So yeah.
Mike, I'm
Are
gonna
you
live with
guys-
you down there in the ocean.
Mike's got a big background.
I know.
He's actually in prison and he just hasn't shared that with us.
Well, he's suffering, but I'm actually in the city right now, so he may be hungry.
I can't hear you.
New York City.
Something's wrong with the audio.
This is
Wow.
great.
So wrapping this up, when you guys look back on your journey, first, what is the moment that stands out for you? With a piece of advice that can help the rest of us at the beginning of the journey.
So, I mean, like I kind of like I said before, I think you know that it's gonna be easier to deal with. You know, when time goes by, I just want to make sure parents are comfortable that way, and the fact that there's going to be improvements in the treatment of it. I also to know that the world is changing in terms of acceptance and stigma and all that kind of thing. So I think in the world as I witnessed is the reality of a world we never knew existed much before, you have your own baby that enters into the same world. So I think it's an amazing group of people, and I think things are getting better. So I think that's my advice is just relax a little bit, I guess, just a little bit. I'm sure you can't relax completely or extremely, but you can certainly relax. And I think that's and there's a big group of support out there that you didn't know about either. That's what I've seen.
And I think I would follow that with, educate yourself, go out into the world and meet other parents, read as much as you can. God, there must be so much incredible technology now for for a parent who's hearing or who's not hearing, but has a baby who like the stuff that's out there right now. Based on 24 years ago, which is my level of technology, it must be amazing. So use that, but don't rely on it. And use your instincts. Your child, like Nora, you asked a great question earlier. If you asked Nora to describe herself, I'm not even sure the word deaf or hard of hearing would be part of it. It's just who she is. She's Nora. And that's exactly what your child will feel like. Educate yourself, give your child every resource available, exhaust all of that in whatever you want to do, whether it's learning sign language or giving them language, oral language. There's no right answer. There's just what feels good to you.
Beautiful way to wrap this up. I want to thank you both for coming, sharing your story with all of us, and thank you for your wisdom. Yeah. And just keep on enjoying Nora.
Oh my gosh, we do. You're not supposed to have a favorite child, but if you pressed me today with a knife to my neck, it would be Nora. She was my easiest baby.
Oh my. The other three are not going to be happy about that one.
No, but they'll never see this recording. I'll make sure of that.
All right.
But
So
I just, we gotta
say that again.
thank you. And thank you for what you're doing too. That's one of the main things.
Yeah.
I can't signal, but I love you.
Yeah.
Completely.
We
I
love you
don't know what the
all.
signal is, but that's what it is.
Time for I love you.
Look at Mike, he's showing up. He's showing up. He lied a little bit about his confidence.
I know about 30 signs. Doctor told me I need to know at least, I need to keep up with my son. He knows 30, I know 30.
That's awesome.
That's what.
Thank you all for giving us part of your afternoon, and Karen for putting all this together. You're going to go on and keep doing wonderful things in the world. So Mike and Karen, keep it up.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I have an
Nice
awesome
to meet you.
team of parent coaches with me. Yeah. So thank you guys. Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very
Have a good Super Bowl day tomorrow.
Yes.
Good Super Bowl. Yeah.
Yes.
Except
Who
my
are you rooting
Lions
for?
should
Who are
be.
you
My
rooting for?
Lions should be there, but they didn't.
I don't know,
Lions, yeah.
Mike.
Well,
It's tough.
you
I
got
wanted
the
to
national
like-
championship this year, so you should.
I know.
You're
Believe
still
me.
in a high place. So
Yeah, true.
All right, we'll take that.
it's all good.
Thank you all.
Chiefs.
Thank you so much.
Take care,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
All right.